Flip this on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Family History Fanatics. My name is Devin Noel Lee, and this is my husband, Andy, and apparently his mother's favorite son. So, how many of you have little pranks that you like to play with your brothers and sisters on your parents or just in your family? Let me know in the comments. That'd be great. But welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to do genealogy research questions. So if you have a DNA question, those are going to be at the next live stream. But we're going to focus on genealogy research related questions. You could also have writing related questions. I'm okay with that, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So what's going on with you before we get everybody in here?
Not much.
Not much?
I'm just here.
He's just here. He's just here. Actually, both of us will be traveling this weekend. Andy is going to, where are you going?
I'm going to Boise, Idaho.
And why are you doing that?
Because my aunt died. And so we're going to her funeral. Actually, I'm going to her funeral.
Yes. And which aunt is this? This one has a connection to the Family History Fanatics channel a little bit.
So she is the one who was pivotal in figuring out matches, DNA matches that we could use to find out who my great-great-grandfather was.
Mm-hmm. So this is the vampire. So if you ever talk about the vampire, she was instrumental in helping Andy find the vampire ancestor on our family tree. So let's go ahead and talk about today's topic. This one came in. Which one do I want to do? Do I want to do that one? I think I'm going to do that one. All right. Give me a second. All right, here we go. All right, so this one came in from Deanna Teague, and she had some questions about this little clipping. So just to give you a little backstory, over the Christmas break, apparently she and her mom were digging through the family archives, and they were doing a lot of just rediscovering what was in the attic. And we all have to give some yays in the chat. Go ahead and say yay, because I told them to get these fragile papers into page protectors, and they immediately during Christmas went out and got those page protectors and put everything in there. So we all need to give Deanna a big yay, and she'll be able to see this later. But then she showed me this clipping. So what does this look like to you, Andy?
Looks like a book something. A page from a book.
A page from a book. A page from a published genealogy of some sort. Now, if you have an idea of what this can be from, I want you to put that in the comment as well, because that is also part of the topic today. Like, where the heck did this come from? So she just has this copy and said, how do I make sense of these relationships?
It looks like the page number of 117,021.
It does look like it could be the page number.
That's a big, long book if that's 117,000 pages.
True. But I have a suspicion it's not a page in the book, but an ID number. So let's go ahead and go through this discussion. All right. So the first thing she said, how do I make sense of these relationships? Before we can make sense of relationship, the best thing we should do is what?
Draw it out. So we're going to start with the couple that was in that profile. And we're going to go back and forth between the slides. If you're watching this replay, you can always hit pause so you can see the text a little bit. So we start with this couple. There's a Dr. Joseph Cartwright and Laura Mitchum. Is that how you would say that? Laura Mitchum. Okay. And then I went ahead and put the marriage date on here just because we need to anchor a time and a place. So about 1861 is when they were married. And when we're drawing things out, you can do the whiteboard method that Andy does on this channel very often. And actually, I drew it out on a piece of paper. I don't have the spiral here, I don't think. Is it this one?
I don't think it's that one. No, I don't know what I did with the spiral. I think I was using it yesterday to get ready for the swim dinner that we hosted at our house. But in any case, I drew it out and I took a digital picture and I sent them in an email and said, here's the drawing. But the date is there to kind of anchor us in place. Okay. And then I like how, as Stacy says, I draw out relationships of love. Yes, drawing out relationships is so
important. All right, so now we're going to go back. That was our primary. That was number 1, Joseph, Cartwright, and Laura. And
So
now,
why didn't we do the Justinian Cartwright and James Ford and Joseph Allen? Or I'm really confused why you started there as opposed to Eudora, Cartwright, Chastain.
That's a very good question. Honestly, I ignored that part and just went to number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And so I just started with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, just because I wanted to then figure out where Eudora went in and then get the questions she had. So you can start anywhere. That's where I started. I started with the couple. All right. So now the next one is James A. Cartwright married Adeline Graves, and William Meacham married Maria Louise Ford. And that's pretty straightforward. This looks like a parental aspect. So we've got Dr. Joseph at the top, and his parents are James, and Laura has the parents of William and Maria. And then again, I have that marriage. And the reason why I have that marriage on there is obviously, well, not obviously, ideally, if a couple is getting married in 1836, then they are going to be the parents of the folks in 1861, right? I did have some birth dates on there, just keeping things brief. You don't want to overload your drawing with too much information. So Maria is born in 1820. She gets married in 1837, and she has a daughter in 1843. Now I can validate that I'm going in the right direction, and that William isn't the son of Joseph, the son of Laura. He's the parent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just have it upside down.
I do have it upside down, right?
At least upside down from what normally you see. It's not saying that this is a wrong way of doing it. This is just not. I was confused at the beginning. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. How does he have 2 kids and she have 2 kids, but they don't both have those 2 kids?
Well, one of those things is when you have this back here, it becomes confusing which way to go. And for me, I just started at one direction, and then I was like, all right, how do I make this make sense? And as I'm putting things in, I built the tree in this way. And then you could go back and flip it over. In fact, I was going to flip it over at the end of this presentation, and I forgot about that because I prepared for this one big quit, and they came back and like, oh, I don't have it flipped. But either way you draw it, the point is have those dates in there so that you can know all of these various different relationships. So Bruce says it looks like a DAR or SAR abstract. I think it is. I really and truly think it is. I think you're onto something. All right, so let's go to the next level and make this make sense. And this is when it started getting really confusing. I didn't necessarily like how this book put things together. Okay, so we have Justinian Cartwright married Frances Gillespie, Thomas Ford marries Alice Grady, and John Meacham marries Margaret Watkin. So as I was reading this just in general, and I was thinking, oh, I just follow the lines, I would expect things to kind of be in the same order, but the Meacham and the Ford flipped around. So I had to draw it in this way. So we've got the Thomas Grady, Thomas and Alice are below Maria. And then you have the John Meacham, and then you have the Justinian. So the lineage for the Cartwright makes sense because they're going to be the first one showing up. But then on the Meacham, it flips and Ford becomes before Meacham. Do you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, but also they didn't have something for the Graves, and they didn't have any indication that there was nothing for the Graves.
Right.
So my first question in this kind of a format is, this is all well and good as long as surnames are passed down.
That is correct.
That seems to me like if you didn't have, I mean, with patronymics, then yeah, I could see how that would still be able to work. But if you didn't have that, and there are some naming systems that don't go by a patronymics or by a passing down surname.
Yeah.
This would just be like a mess because you wouldn't know which one went with which person if you aren't following a specific order each time. And you've already showed that it doesn't look like it's following the specific order. And it's not telling you when people are missing. Like, for instance, go to the next page. If the surnames weren't there, if you had some naming system that did not involve surnames, then you might you might get this first one right with Justinian and Francis to James, but then you might put John and Margaret to Adeline.
Right.
And then put Thomas and Alice to William and be like, Maria's missing.
Right.
When Maria wasn't missing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the reasons why I advocate drawing this out, because when the main question comes up a little later, it was hard for me to understand because there wasn't the linear pattern that I would expect. Just that flipping of the Meacham and the Ford threw me off completely in the writing.
Okay, wait. Stacy's got a good comment here. Where Monster has my surname and my husband has his mother's surname.
There you go. There you go. And that is not unusual to happen. And then you have, anytime there's illegitimacy or adoption and things of that nature, if there's not a standard format of where things are supposed to go, it can get really confusing. And maybe there is. If those of you who have written these books for DAR or SR have an idea of why they do the formats the way they do, that would be great. But just for your average Joe or Joanne, or in this case, Deanna and Devin, it can get really confusing, because then you say, all right, how is people related? And if you don't draw it out and try to figure this out, then it can get really, really confusing. All right, so let's go to the next level. So then they say James Ford. So we don't even have the Cartwrights or the Graves anymore. James Ford and the Meachams, and you still have, now they're being consistent with, I guess, the maternal line being the farthest on the right and the paternal line being the farthest on the left, maybe, is what this pattern goes, but it still is kind of confusing.
Yeah.
So let's draw that out.
So if you knew everybody, so basically what I'm seeing here, if I understand this right. So if you knew everybody, then there should be, line 2 will have 2 marriages. Line 3 should have 4 marriages, which means line 4 should have 8 marriages, but we only have 2 marriages. So there's 6 of those marriages that either they don't care about or they don't know. But I'm left wondering which one is it, because there's nothing indicating unknown like that.
Exactly. Great points.
Is this in any way related to an on and toffel, is how it's arranged? I don't think so, because I think on and toffel goes by order from patrilineal down to matrilineal.
How about you go over here and you look up on and toffel, and we can bring it on a little bit later if we need to. All right, so we're going to draw out this relationship, and you're going to see, all right, so the Meacham line is expanding down diagonally. The Ford is, but we're not taking Watson, Grady, Gillespie, Graves, or Cartwright. All right, so we got one last row to pop in, and I like the reactions that are coming in. There is one by Kathra Stendervelt. I'm not sure how to say that name, but I'll come back to your comment. I do see it. I just wanted you to be aware. All right, so then the next slide for the final one, Joseph Allen and Sarah Allen. Now, we've been dealing with Fords and Meachams, so now we got to go back to the chart and say, what the heck? Oh, so Dudley Meacham married Susan Allen, and Susan Allen married Joseph Allen and Sarah Allen. But guess what? We have a problem now. Is Sarah Allen her maiden name or her married surname? I'm not sure.
Ooh.
I'm not sure.
Well, okay, but whoa, go back. Why do you assume that they're married? Okay, that does say married.
It does say married.
It didn't say married, but yeah.
It does say that they were married. So now what do? Do we actually put Allen as her surname? Or do you put parentheses Allen, meaning there's another maiden name, but on the record, she's looking at Allen? I'm not entirely sure, but look at all the questions that come from when it's published in this fashion. So we do have Joseph and Sarah at the bottom. Did you find it on and toffel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to bring it on?
Sure, if you want.
Yeah. So go back to StreamYard. And go to there. Present. Screen share. All right. Give me just a second. And he's going to bring the on and toffel. Sure. All right. So we're going to take a quick moment, go up to the top so everybody can actually see the top. On and toffel, right? So what have you learned about the on and toffel format?
Well, this is like relearning every single time, but it's math. for those of you who really like math. And not only is it math, but it is also computer coding, if you really like computer coding.
Oh, lovely.
Actually, it's pretty ingenious for, having, this was, I'm not sure when it was, back in the 1500s. So this is before computers, and yet it basically uses some computer programming to do it. So in essence, think of it simple this way. The first way method is you have a person, and we'll just start with you as number one. Your father is twice whatever you are, and your mother is twice plus one of whatever you are.
So this is giving a number.
This is giving a number.
Oh, okay.
So if we go back to that big, huge thing, note the page that had the number page. So the fact that it is an odd, if this is an Onentafel number, then that would be from the mother's side, or that would be the mother of somebody, because there's an odd number. So if we take away that one and we have 117,020,
okay,
we divide that by 2, and that's the number of the next person down. And at 117,000, you're going to have to divide several times. But basically, it's a way that you could see whether this is mother, father, mother, father. Now, go back to this.
We're just going to have a quick little lesson of Onentafels.
Yes.
It's an ancestor table.
And I don't use Onentafels, and I think they're dumb because then you have to do math. And I actually like math to do genealogy and figure stuff out when I'd rather not do that. The second method is basically just binary. So you have a person, and the other person that's related to them, their ancestor, you put a 1 for a father, a 0 for a mother. So, 1 0 1 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 1 0 1 0 1. That tells you basically how they're related by following your mothers and fathers back up. Pretty cool, huh?
Ouch.
And basically, because of binary, if you just go through and do the math on that, you come up with the Onentafel number.
Okay.
So, like I said, it's math and it's computer programming, invented back in the 1500s before there was computers.
And apparently Onentafel is only for direct ancestors, so it's very limited in use.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But what we're seeing, this isn't Onentafel, because this is just putting a few brief details about them, and they're trying to show a lineage. Because honestly, this is one of the reasons why someone said earlier it looks like a SAR-DAR thing, is because at the end of that lineage, we get that Joseph Allen served in Colonel Marshall's regiment in Virginia Artillery. He was born in Essex County and died in Spottsylvania County, Virginia. Okay, I have to stop for a moment.
Spotsylvania County, Virginia?
Yes. Okay, so we just played a game. What was that game?
Locales.
Huh?
Locales.
So it's a game where it will pick random different town names. There was like Eel Pie or Spotsylvania, and the person who has the card will know the correct way this name came to be and where it's located on the map, and everybody else has to invent it. And I kept going, I know where Spotsylvania is because I just looked at it. I looked at it in Deanna's thing. I looked at it in my own family tree, and I messed up and put it in. She
couldn't remember if it was in Pennsylvania or if it was in Virginia.
Yes, and I kept going, why don't I split it? Only just one of the answers is Pennsylvania and one's Virginia, and I'll get one chance of getting it right. But I went all in on Pennsylvania. I was wrong. So anyway, that's a little side note. Genealogy can be fun because I can help you win games if you pay attention. But apparently I decided not to pay attention. But anyway, so the reason why I'm thinking this is SAR-DAR is because of that information. And then I went ahead and highlighted the Joseph Allen. Now, why would that be important? Because if you're trying to prove your lineage to someone who's a patriot in the American Revolution, you've just highlighted Joseph, and you can go Joseph, Sarah, John, William, and Laura, and then of course back to the main person that I hadn't put on there just yet.
Okay, so real quick. So if this is an SAR-DAR, why bother with the other names?
Great question. Right, because why would you need the Cartwright?
Because what you care about is the soldier or the daughter.
Right. Yep.
And the others aren't related to that. So
and that's a very valid question, right? And maybe it's there because you're trying to prove that Laura was married to this Joseph, and which Joseph, but still you've got these two generations of
people that maybe it's a feeder for future patriots. I'm not even sure. I am not sure why that's there. So if somebody's in SAR or DAR and they can explain that to us, that would be very, very helpful as well. Because all of this does is leads to kind of confusion to newbie genealogists who get this clipping in their files and have no idea what it's from. If it was in a book and it has all the explanation, then you would go through and then you would be able to see, oh, I see what they're doing here. So there's 2 patriots in this little clipping. And so how is Eudora? Let me go over here so you can actually see it. How is Eudora related to number 4? Well, we now need to put Eudora back on there. So if you're just looking at this on this paper, like Gianna was, it's really hard to figure that out. Would you not agree?
Mm-hmm.
However, you could go, okay, this is a child of generation 1. So that's parents, grandparents, great grandparents for 3, and 4 would be great grandparents. But if you chart it out, it becomes a whole lot easier. So we have that relationship right there? So we have parents for Eudora would be Laura, and then William would be a grandparent, then John would be a great-grandparent, and then Dudley would be a great-great-grandparent. And so if you're trying to get to either James or Dudley, but probably James because he's a patriot, it goes mothers, mothers, fathers, father. There we go. Okay. So the overall lesson in this is that whenever you come across a record like that, draw out the relationships. And yes, sometimes when you're drawing it out, you start with one and you go down and you're like, oh, shoot, that's the ancestors. So then you would actually flip it over. So it makes more sense because Andy was confused. Like, why are you going that way? I don't know. It's just the way I went.
Didn't want to confuse me.
Didn't want to confuse you. All right. So there were a couple of
ancestors go up. They don't go down. Descendants go down.
Okay. They can also go right and left. But again,
those
all right.
are wrong.
I'm just wrong. Thank you so much.
You're not. You're just wrong.
Did I just switch from James to Joseph? It's entirely possible. Hit the replay. Go back and find out.
Don't remove it, but go back to the thing. Yeah. What, James and Joseph? No, because there's a James and there's a Joseph.
Okay, let me go back.
Oh, you're saying when you went mother, mother, father, mother, father, father?
Possibly. James, Joseph.
So the chart's right.
The chart's right. I can't speak. Apparently that's what I'm getting at. Oops, sorry about that.
So let me ask this question. Were you able to figure out where this was actually from? I mean, we talk about it being an SAR, DAR.
I haven't just yet. We're going to go and do that live. Okay. So we're going to go to this one first. Okay. And I need to remember, hold on a second. I got to remember names here. All right. So let me type it and then we will come back, Eudora. So I want to do 3, 10, and then let's do a quick search. All right, so let me come back over here. That didn't work.
You have Mitchum spelled wrong.
Probably. All right. And I do that occasionally. All right. So my question would, when you're using these DAR, American Revolution lineage books, would you start with the person, so the Eudora, or would you start with somebody else with a funny name on the tree? That's what I was kind of trying to do, well, Mitchum. Let me try to spell his name right. How do you spell it?
Mitchum.
Nope. All right. Let's do Eudora. Eudora.
Nope, you got a U.
Right.
Eudora.
And her last.
Chastain.
So it was Cartwright. And Chastain.
Something like that.
I have to go back. T-I-A-N. All right.
Are you sure that you didn't just mistype that?
Nope. I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I did.
Yes, you did.
What did I misspell?
I and the A, you have them switched.
Oh, okay. All right. Search.
She wasn't born in 1754.
Oh, that's true.
But there is Miss Eudora Cartwright.
All right, view record. Oh, are you kidding me? It's an extraction, but it has the people here, right? Because we've got, let's zoom in here.
DAR ID number.
Oh.
So that's not even an Onentafel. Awful.
Yes, so that's the DAR number for her.
ID number, okay.
Mm-hmm. There you go. The birth years. Anyway, so this is the extraction version of it. So my guess, if we went to the DAR website and we're looking for a descendant search, spouse or name, group by patriots, we're going to put Cartwright.
No. This is the descendant search of the patriots.
Okay.
Then it's not Cartwright, because go back to the thing. No, go back to your chart, because that doesn't make any sense to me. It needs to be James Ford or Joseph Allen.
Okay. Let's try it out here.
You're not looking at the right thing. You probably have the tab as opposed to the window. Yeah, see, that's Chrome tab.
There we go. All right. So we're going to put in this last name, zoom in a bit, and we're going to try it. I think it's a descendant search, but we think because there was a different one. There was a descendant search, and there was a patriot search. Okay, the purpose of the database is to help those looking for patriots to identify the best possible record to order. Found, it contains lineage for most applications. Please note, index of names found on the lineage. I think you could put anybody in there. So we want to do James Ford regardless?
Sure.
James Ford. Go back.
You don't have these. 1737 or 1757.
1757. Search. Nope. No member records. I really think it's supposed to be Eudora.
What?
I think it's supposed to be Eudora.
That makes no sense.
And that didn't work either. So one of the things.
Why can't you search by the member record? Because you have her number.
It doesn't have the record number in there.
I know,
right? I've never seen it. Where is that at? Okay, so the DIR website is dar.org. Let's go here. Go back to Registry. Okay, so it is dar.org. I'll put that in there for you. And it was easier. I was going to do this beforehand, but I thought it would be fun to do it live. But apparently that's not the way to do things either. You come up to the GRS at the top, and click on GRS. And this is the genealogical research system. Let's do the Ancestor. We're going to do the Ancestor search.
There we go.
This might make a lot more sense. All right. So all I did to double thing is come down. There's the Ancestor search. There's the member and then the descendants. But I'm going to do the Ancestor search. So the last name was James Ford, right?
Mm-hmm.
James, 1757.
Yep.
Oops, it goes over here. And the year of death.
No, just do that.
Just do this?
Do everything. Just do that.
Okay.
James Ford, Sergeant.
I don't remember. They did have a little bit here. James Ford.
And this is a private and sergeant. Okay. Yep.
And Captain Peyton Starn.
He was born in Caroline County, Virginia.
So that's him right here.
And then there's a Lucy Ship, and he's married to a Lucy Ship. And then I've got it covered up right now. All right, so this is the application. And so you could look at all this Grady, Barry.
Okay, wait. That's the number.
That is the number.
There, so, see, you're a Cartwright as opposed to Chastain. That's why.
There you go. Oh, but you know what? We got to do this. All right, let's go back here. So if you come down here, you're going to see the associated applications and any supplements. And then we saw that number 117021. We click on that. And what you can do now is you can purchase the application and all the sources that are part of that. Whereas this that we had seen, this is just that DAR compilation books, and it's a lookup. Why I couldn't find it on Ancestry, I'm not sure. But these DAR books are at the Family History Library. I know there's multiple copies online, several places. Maybe I need to come back. Nope. It was the extraction of it. It was just the extraction of it. And I've had seen other copies. Oh, look, there's another one. North American History. Here we go. This is it. There's the DAR part. So I had actually typed it in incorrectly. I thought it was going to be the DAR lineage books, and it's actually this North American Family Histories collection, Daughters of the American Revolutions, and that's why these names are so confusing. But this is what I was looking for. Yay! But here's the various lookups, and you're able to find how people are related to all the different people. So whenever you see these numbers over here and you see these funky lineages, that's kind of a clue as to where you would find from your home source to an actual book. And then you take the book and then you can get over to ordering the application and see what their research was. Good job. Thanks. I knew we would get there. I just forgot
much
how
does
to
one
get
of these record copies cost, and what's actually in it? Do you
how,
get to see what's in it?
How much do they cost? Let's find out. Ordering.
$20.
$20 or $30 for paper per paper for electronic order. There's different fees, but what do you get? So I've seen various applications online, and a number of things, what they're going to say in these applications is they're going to have something very similar as what we showed a moment ago. They're going to show you the lineage, and then somebody is going to put down, and I'm only going to assume this based on, one, what I've seen online in an index for family search, and two, what I did for the daughters of, I get it all wrong all the time. It's the Daughters of Union Civil War Veterans. And so there is the documentation that I had to submit, but in the applications that I've indexed for family search, it just, you wrote out your lineage to the Patriot, and then you said where things were. And that's where you saw, okay, so proof of marriage, this county book, blah, blah, blah. It didn't actually have the image in it.
So, no, what I'm trying to see here is it says, hey, some of this has supporting documentation available.
Okay.
I'm trying to see what is that supporting documentation. Like, for instance, if I just click on this purchase over here, I can close this window. It tells me, hey, $10 and I get a lineage. Okay. Which doesn't sound cool because we already have that. I mean, it's taken off some of the stuff in here. But what I was hoping to find is, hey, this supporting documentation, can you tell me what
it is?
Like, am I going to get a copy of this thing? Or, different things like that. I guess that's what I was looking for. Because, some of these sources are a probate or whatever, a regiment list.
I think it all depends.
the ones I had seen, I haven't actually purchased one because I haven't proven any DAR lineage that doesn't go through adoption yet. So I haven't actually seen what you get when you order. So I'm not going to speak to that. The only thing I know is when I've seen the applications, they just had, like you said, the service source, War 5 Peach 28 V State, that citation. That is what I've seen in the applications that I've indexed on Family Search. So if anybody knows, that'd be great. Let's tackle a couple of the questions people had. All right, you go. Hey, I'll take over here. All right, this was a great question. Why don't they just put the pedigree in these sources? All right, so the way to answer that question is to actually take a look at these books. So these books, let me zoom out. And I think Stacy also said, is she on the next page? She has a little bit on the next page. Oh, look at that. That's why they have the Justinian there on the.
Okay, so they are going back and they're ignoring things that aren't related to a
Patriot.
Okay.
Okay, so that makes sense.
That makes sense now.
But what does that tell you? One, Stacy, you're super smart. That's first tells you. So Stacy is super smart. No, you always have to go to the second page. But if this is just in your home source, do you know that there is a second page? That's why it is important to go to track down this source.
So you didn't get the second page from Deanna.
There you go. I didn't. I don't know if she knew to get it to me. I don't know if she had it. I just had that picture, and that's all we had.
Well, so, go back up to the page, the past page, because scroll out. So just in general here, because of the way that it's scanned, there's nothing at the bottom telling you that that is the end of the page.
That's true.
That it might go to something else.
That's correct.
Now, just looking at the size of it here, in hindsight, I can see, okay, yeah, that's a pretty standard size. And so that makes sense that it's on the next page. But there's nothing at the bottom, like the page number or a line and something else at the bottom to say, basically, this is the end of the page.
Right. Sweat. Oh, shoot. Thank you, Stacy. Sorry. We have so many screens going on.
Go back now then, because they missed everything.
So here.
Go back 2 pages. Go back another page. So scroll out. So just in looking at this, there's nothing that tells me that the bottom is the end of the page as opposed to the end of the entry. So I can understand why somebody might just think, okay, that's it. As opposed to go to the next page and you see that, oh, it's actually continued on the next page. But go to the next page. Also, at the same time, there's nothing on this that tells you what that is a continuation of. Now, because these are all in numerical order, then you can assume that that is for 21.
Yeah, so you would have to wait. And when you get to a new number or the new capitalization of this, that would tell you when that's the end of the beginning. There you go. But that tells us why they dropped off at the Justinian. And so he actually should have been colored blue. I didn't do it wrong. I went based on the available information, which is why we needed to come track down this book in the first place and then go over here.
Okay, so why isn't it in pedigrees? That's the question.
Why isn't it in pedigrees? I think because these books are, let's see, there's 352 images in this book. And so here's page 1. What they're trying to do is just give you a quick guide of people to their relationships. And it just goes, okay, here's an Elizabeth Betts, and this is how she's proved herself to a patriot. Now, hers was pretty quick and pretty short, and that's all you need. Others might need to go through multiple levels to get to, in this case, Joseph Lovell. Now, granted, all of he's a direct ancestor because that's Lovell. But
they're all direct ancestors. That's redundant. Every ancestor is a direct ancestor of you.
The direct paternal line, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You don't need direct, you just need paternal.
Whatever.
The patrilineal line.
There you go.
I always love it when people say direct ancestor, because I'm like, so what would an indirect ancestor be? Because it's not like an uncle. They're not an ancestor. Now, if you say direct ancestor, that might just be another name for parent. Because they're directly your ancestor. But everything else is a direct ancestor. Sorry.
So another way I could have done this was I could have looked at the member search too. That's what Bruce. Thanks, Bruce.
So here's my thought, actually. I don't think that you've answered the question.
Okay. I thought I had, but
no,
go for it.
I don't think you have. I would surmise.
My thing is it saves space to do it this way.
Okay. Now that may
instead of doing pedigree charts.
That may be part of it. I would actually say this goes back to when these books were first published.
Oh, yeah. Let's go look at the copyright date.
As far as
charts weren't easy to make. Oh, 1915?
Well, but
1931.
These have been going back even further, though.
I know, but this one was in 1931.
So once you go back to 1800s, probably when these books first started being published, publishing a chart was basically you had to have a carver or somebody go and carve it on a plate. And if they messed up, then the plate was messed up and you started again. Or maybe you did something special. I don't know exactly. But it was really tedious, really time consuming. And so in order to quickly show a genealogy, and this is the whole reason why I think you have this whole untangle thing, why you have these others, is you're trying to present stuff and distribute it to others with the printing press in an as easy a way possible for the printing press, which is great for the time because, okay, well, let's come up with these different systems like they have that shows this genealogy in a paragraph form. I don't know why we still do that.
I don't know.
Convert it over to a graphic by now, because that's all people are going to do anyway. So they're going to convert it to a graphic.
Right. Which leads to the next comments of, I think they need some new additions.
And those new additions should have pedigree charts.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because with desktop publishing, that's really easy to do.
All right. Now, indirect ancestor would be in-laws and step-parents.
But they're not your ancestors.
Why not? Because you claim them. Well, not necessarily. Well.
What is the definition of an ancestor?
A forebearer.
We're going to look up what the definition of ancestor is. A person, typically one more remote than a grandparent. Oh, so even grandparents and parents are not ancestors, from whom one is descended.
Oh, shush.
So your parents are not your ancestors. Your grandparents are not your ancestors, but your great-grandparents are. And none of them, or actually all of them, are direct. And there's no such thing as an indirect ancestor. How's that? Why don't you look up what is a direct ancestor? Now that we're on this. Direct ancestors are people to whom you are related through parent-child relationships only. Aunts, uncles, and siblings, and others who are not direct ancestors or descendants are called collateral relatives or indirect ancestors. Except we've already said an ancestor is somebody you're descended from. So by their own definition, they're contradicting themselves. Here's these people you are not descended from, but we're going to call them something that you're descended from.
So they need to take off the indirect and just leave it as collateral.
They just need to call them collateral relatives. Or forget the collateral relatives. Relatives.
Parent-child. So steps could be, especially if they're the ones who raised you, they would be your ancestors.
No. No, because they say, again, going back to the definition of ancestor, from whom you are descended.
All right, moving on.
So, all your ancestors are direct ancestors. Except now that I've learned your parents and your grandparents are not.
All right, we did that one.
Oh, Stacy's the other. We talked about that one.
Which one?
Another page.
Yeah, we already did that one.
So, no, that one we've already done.
We already did this one?
Yes, that's what I was telling you.
Okay. And then Juliana had said that his husband. My husband has mother's surname too, and that just complicates things. All right. June.
So that's why a pedigree chart format would be superior now, because the fact of, well, okay, so in the United States, and probably in most English-speaking worlds, we've pretty much followed the father's surname being passed down. Now, really, in the last, 50 years or so, and over that time, it's actually become more popular to not necessarily do that. And so you have some people who they actually have their kids. One has the mom's surname, one has the dad's surname, or something even different. I think Leah Larkin once explained that her kids have, I can't even remember everything, but it's something that involves her grandma or something else, that if you just showed it on a paragraph like this, without any structured definitive format that includes the unknowns or not relevance, then you would just be really confused. And so going back to whoever said that, hey, they need some new editions of the books, they do, and they need to be pedigrees, because there's going to be more people that have, like, was it June or Stacy, whoever is saying, with their kids having two different surnames or whatever.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
So June said, okay, so when this goes back to the question, it was Sarah Allen. What was her last name? Was it Allen married name? Allen maiden name? She had said, to see if there's a list of their children. And that could hopefully answer the question. So these lineage books are not going to answer every question that we have. It just gives you a rough starting point. Now, here's my next question for you guys that you guys haven't asked or answered. Are these lineage books, what is the word? Not verifiable. Basically, it's a question of accuracy. How accurate are these lineage books? Did you take this lineage that's put together and go and say, that's my heritage?
No.
Why not?
Because just like everything else, there's going to be errors in it. Errors in the records that were used. Because when you look at, I think when you go through and look at some of these records, they might be this list of something, or it might be somebody's probate record, or it might be, a letter to somebody. Well, if you are part of, let's say, this family secret of somebody adopted without any kind of paperwork or love child or something like this, or something else, the papers that you have may not be real as far as reality. They may be what is recorded. I'll agree with that. So I would say that, hey, is this recorded from sources? Yes. I would say that this is a great thing where there's sources to back everything up. That's one thing that the DAR and the SAR are excellent at, is you can't just say, I'm a son of the American Revolution. Can I get my membership?
Right.
They don't do that. You've got to provide sources.
Here's something else that they've done.
But those sources may be suspect.
Yep. They'll have notices. Future applicants must prove correct service. And then there's a why.
It's not showing the why, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't. If you click this, it has a pop-up screen and it shows why. But I like how they were trying to tell you whenever they come across something that is suspect or maybe has been proven false, that if somebody wants to prove that in the future, that they have to come through and prove it. So that's kind of an interesting thing to pay attention to in the various databases. You've got to prove it. And if they can't, then they're going to say, hey, problems have been discovered with at least one previously verified paper. See Ancestor's full record. So that is DAR telling you that there are some errors in the stuff that they have received in previous research. So you always want to try to get the most current version of everything.
Yeah. So for instance, here, and I don't know any more of this, but here's one of the sources of this service, Draper manuscripts. Now, I don't know because I haven't looked at it, but this Draper manuscripts might have been put together 50 years later. It might be that the original that these were don't exist anymore. And so this is the best it is. But think about that. We're using something that is a copy of something else. In other words, some scribe, hey, copied this down, and they might have made a mistake. So would I call this verified or whatever? No, I wouldn't call any of these verified. Would I call these sourced? Yes, I would call these sourced.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to call them sourced. We're not going to call them, definitive. Or there was another word that I had a discussion with somebody about, but I can't remember it. But here's something to follow up real quick.
Okay.
LJ, hi. I haven't seen you before. Thank you for dropping by. Documentation and include things like marriage record, death records, copies of things from books like what you're showing today. It's whatever the applicant submitted as supporting documentation. That is awesome. So that's good. So maybe what I looked at before was just the application and not the supporting documents. So
yeah, you got to buy the supporting documents.
Yeah,
but I couldn't see what the supporting documents that come with it. It just says, hey, there's supporting documents.
Right. Okay, here's another question for you, Mr. Relationship. Are half brothers and sisters, are they family?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're not ancestors or descendants.
They're not ancestors or descendants.
From you.
But, I mean, you share a common, well, we said parents aren't ancestors. You share a common parent if you're half siblings. Therefore, you're family.
Okay. Here's a question that just I keep doing that. All right, Christine.
Oh, wait, I got another thing though. So what about, okay, so you have a half brother with your father, and you have a half brother through your mother. Are those two, they're both half brothers to you, but there's no relation between the two of them. There's no familial relationship. Isn't that cool?
It is cool. And then if they're raised in the same house, we'll just call each other brothers.
And they're like completely unrelated.
Okay, let's go to this question that just popped in. Okay, because I think
what does the pedigree symbol on the right show? I think that just shows a pedigree chart. Oh no, it doesn't show a pedigree chart. It shows a list of
other descendants. So let's go back and look at the little highlight thing. View all available descendants listed for this patriot.
Okay, so it doesn't even tell you. It gives you the numbers, but it doesn't tell you like how any of these are related to each other.
Yeah,
necessarily.
Right. So it tells you who has applied and what their application.
Because I look here and I see mini ball. That's actually a pretty cool name for that time. Mini ball. Do y'all know what a mini ball is?
No.
Okay, so the history lesson. So back when we just had muskets and firearms were first started, we made lead balls that were just spheres. And it's actually pretty cool. You can either put it in a mold, or if you're mass producing it, what you do is you drip the lead from like 150 stories up, and it solidifies as it comes down. And so what you end up doing is you end up having all these lead balls at the bottom. And so your armories that produce that, they have these big towers where they drip it. And I think it had to do with how high up you dripped it from would depend on how big of a ball, and you'd get pretty uniform, balls. So anyway, so those are great, and they can hit targets out to about 50 yards or so with fair, decent amount of accuracy. So then you have.
I don't think that's a mini ball.
That's not a mini ball. I haven't said what a mini ball is. That's a musket
I don't
ball.
think you're headed in the right direction for mini ball.
One of the technological advances shortly before the Revolutionary War was the mini ball. Now, the mini ball was not a ball. It was actually a cone type of thing, more like a bullet, like we would think of today. And it was designed to go in the rifles, which was a brand new technology at that time, where they cut grooves in the barrel. And what that did with this mini ball is it made it spin so that you could shoot farther and more accurate. And that's one of the things that the American revolutionaries, in particular, the frontiersmen, they preferred rifles because, you're shooting game. It's better to shoot them at 100 or 200 yards than it is at 50 yards, because then you have to sneak up on them. And so the rifles were used more on the American side as that than they were on the British side. And it was a guy named Mini. That's why it's called a mini ball, Mini, or something like that in French. He's the one that invented it, and and brought it over. And so that's why I see Minnie Ball. That's a great name for that time period. She was named after this.
Are you sure?
I am certain.
I think that's a surname.
I think Minnie Ball is, I know. Now, well, it may be a surname, but okay, if this, I'll grant you this. Minnie is a name outside of this, and that's not spelled like Minnie, like a mini ball. Ball is a common surname, and so it's possible that's just pure coincidence. I don't want to believe that, though. I want to believe that some dad or mom was like, you know what? We just had this kid. Let's name him after what you used to shoot those British. Well, that was a mini ball, huh? Fine. We'll call this Mini Ball Dudley. Doesn't that sound plausible?
Except Minnie is a traditional nickname for
I
Mary.
know.
It could be Minerva, Wilhelmina, Clementine, Hermione, and Amelia.
But I want to believe that somebody was naming their kid after the mini ball.
You can keep believing that. You know what? I have always said if family history isn't fun and you're doing it wrong, and Angie just proved that it can be fun. All right, so we got 2 more questions. These, let's see. How much verification is needed to feel assured that a book is not barking up the wrong tree?
How much?
Well, let's do a reasonably exhaustive search. And let's take what they have and see if it can be reproduced. This actually goes to a discussion, and Andy, I'm going to try to lead you where I'm thinking of going. So in science, right, whenever scientists or engineers publish papers to do research, do you know where I'm heading with this? We had this conversation just yesterday about science and redoing things.
Maybe.
Okay. So when they go and they put forth their findings in publications, what is the next step? Or, I mean, do we go, oh, that finding must be true?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, so the next step, which should happen, is other people should take a look at it and say, let me try that. And so then they go and basically do the exact same experiment. Now, their papers, if they ever get published, I don't know that they do, because you're doing the same thing that somebody else did. So most journals want something new and innovative. And so that's one of the problems is like, okay, so how many other experiments of this same thing has been confirmed with that? So when you say how much verification is needed, well, I guess one thing is like, for instance, these DAR books, SAR books. Well, the first thing you should do is get a copy of it and go through the sources that they have and maybe look more at the background. Basically, try to take another step and see, okay, well, where did this record come from? Is this really that record? To make sure that they didn't make a mistake. Perhaps they forgot the second page of this birth certificate. I'm just going to use this as an example that says, oh, by the way, this is the second copy of a birth certificate because this person was actually adopted and they wanted a real birth certificate, or, a birth certificate with this name on it.
But that goes directly to breaking a brick wall of mine for my grandmother's biological mother to find her lineage. There were 2 death certificates. The first one is the one all of us had on the
birth certificate?
Death. No, death certificate.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The first one they had, it didn't have all this other information, and the informant was somebody who worked in a hospital. On the second one, because I had posted this in a Facebook group several years ago, somebody said, hey, did you know there's a second copy? On that second copy, there was a note outside of the form, and it said the RP Sparks had given the information to the hospital person. And as soon as I started researching RP Sparks, I found out that this is the uncle of my grandmother's biological mother, and then that helped me push it back 2 or 3 generations.
But in this case, this wasn't even like the second page.
It wasn't a second page.
Because what it is when you think about how the government documents are filed, they're just filed in order. So baby 1 is born, they fill out the birth certificate, it gets the next number. Next baby that's born, they get the next number. We make an addition to this first one, well, we're just going to file it, as the next number or the next page or something In some cases, this was because these were actually in a book. And so it's not like you could go through and do that. Maybe you could write in the margin or something. But in a lot of cases, it's like, we'll just slap a new birth certificate in here with the notes on it, 5, 10, 15, 300 pages. Because that's the same thing with your grandma's birth certificate. Her original birth certificate is... Same grandma. Remember, original birth certificate is filed in handwriting, and this was a 1921, on in the books. You look at her adopted birth certificate, which was like 9 years later or something, 5 years later, it's typed. All the information from the original birth certificate, the doctor, all this stuff, the signatures of the doctor, they probably went back and got the doctor to sign it again and all this stuff. The only difference is the last name. All the other information is the same as from the original birth certificate, but the second one is typed, and it's obviously 5 years later. So if you weren't even looking at the next page, you were looking at something else. So verification with these is, you should do your own. Make sure that what their sources actually say it, because it could be that they missed something there. But then, like I said, what I would do is I would then go the next step and see, okay, well, where are these sources from? And is there any other information there that got missed? And then go and start looking, is there other sources that confirm or contradict this information?
Yep. All right. We got another question. Hey, Bob, I'll get to your question in just a second. I think we're just going to handle 2 more and then I have to go. This question. All right. Show and tell time.
Okay.
Read the question.
I'm creating family history photo books. Any ideas on how to make them come alive?
How do you make them come alive? Well, here's a photo book, a family history photo book. One idea is to, so here we have Andy's parents and I'm writing a little poem, right? And it says, I'm a med tech, I'm from med tech and management, cougars and utes, and silly singing and MBAs. So it's not very verbose. It's not very detailed, but I've got the names. I've got a big picture. Big pictures always make things come alive.
You're pointing to the wrong. This is the big picture.
Is this the big picture?
That's the big picture.
I can't see. All right. And then I'm giving you just a little bit of a nugget to spark somebody's interest. And I go through each generation. So here's the next generation. And can you read that for me? Because I'm looking at the back.
2 lovebirds with 8 children, California and Utah, United Airlines, and handmade quilts.
Okay. So that's in details about Andy's grandparents. And I just go through page by page, just working this. I'm from something, something, and something. I'm from something, something, and something. And that's one way you can do it. And then I get back a little bit further. And here's a cluster one. Say that one.
I'm from pioneers who crossed the plains.
And then I did another one.
I'm from immigrants who sailed the seas.
Okay. So that's one way to make things kind of come alive. I'm from settlers of the American frontier. And you can throw in a lot of things of that name. And you put your picture, put your name. The other thing you could do is include stories. Always include stories with your pictures. Essentially, a photo book doesn't have the ability to see the back of the photo. So have little information that who's in the picture, what are they doing, where are they doing it, why are they doing it, and stuff like that. So that's what I would do. All right. So then, Bob, I have a birth register from the Netherlands where in the margin it states that the mother married and the new husband takes the child as his own. Absolutely. We always want to go to original records because there are a lot of notations there. I did videos about Catholic Church records, and some Catholic Church records, particularly marriage records, will say where these people were baptized before. And it can take you across the pond. It can take you to another location because a priest had to write to another priest to say, where is this baptism? Did it take place? Yeah. And so when you're lucky, the priest who got contacted by the marriage folks will make a note, hey, they got married in this date and location. And then the priest doing the marriage would say the baptism was confirmed here and here.
And so if you don't go into the records, you won't necessarily see that because not every index extracts that kind of information. So yeah, always go to look at your original records.
Yeah, and some of the Catholic Church records are great. I mean, like Devin was saying with that, they are in essence this cross-reference across all these parishes to help join things. So you're going to have the wife's original parish, it's going to have a record of that. You're going to have the dad's or the husband's original parish that's going to have that. And if they got married in a third parish, then there'll be a third parish. So basically, all three of those parishes should reference each thing, ideally, not all the time, but ideally. And some priests are much more verbose in their descriptions of things that are happening and what else was there. And so, the indexes are going to have the names and the marriage date and maybe where they were from originally. But if you get into some of those records, the Catholic priests that put lots of notes and stuff in there, there's this wealth of information that may lead you to other relatives or just may lead you to the character of the people.
Awesome. All right. So I did want to remind everyone that there is a Family History Fanatics webinar happening just in a few minutes. The link is on the channel member page. If you haven't joined yet, feel free to join. And then the show notes or the handout for the webinar are going to be in the description of the video in the member section or on the members community tab. So give me just a few minutes to switch over to that live streams. We'll talk about city directories and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.